School is out for the summer for the Seahawks, but not before their final minicamp practice. What went down in Wednesday's session of the VMAC? We're going to be breaking it all down here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, the host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12 listening in. Whether you're in Monroe, Washington, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, we appreciate all of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. School is officially out for the summer for the Seahawks, wrapping up a 2-day mandatory minicamp. They canceled their third practice that was scheduled for Thursday, but still plenty to break down from their final session of the offseason program. On Wednesday, we'll be talking quarterbacks. We've got offensive line discussion. Leonard Williams not resting on his laurels. Tons to chat about coming out of this final session. So let's get to it for this episode, brought your way by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Now for your lead story here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Without the pads on, without contact, it is always difficult to evaluate players during off-season workouts, and that even includes the quarterback spot. With that being said, however, there at least are some things that are more applicable to real football from the quarterback position when we watch these practices. And Rob, you and I had the opportunity to see a few of these sessions during the course of OTAs, minicamp, and the quarterback position is one that obviously is always going to be under the microscope. And what I found to be one of the most fascinating storylines when you just look at the last 2 weeks, in just a 2-week span, 5 open practices, just seeing how much that Jalen Milroe, the third-round pick out of Alabama, how much he has improved steadily over each one of those practices. And that is all you can ask for when you're talking about a rookie quarterback. You are seeing these incremental steps that are being made every time he's on the field. Mike Macdonald talked about it today after practice, that he's earned the right to have that confidence with the prep that he has put in, being there at 4:30 in the morning on some of these days. I mean, this guy does not mess around. He is a worker. That has not been overblown at all. And that was one of the things that really jumped out to me the last couple of days in this mini camp. And I know he's playing against third stringers, but he's playing with third stringers. And getting to see Jalen Milroe, just how much more comfortable he is in this offense, that has been one of the big storylines for me here this last 2 weeks.
Yeah, no question about it. It's been exciting. I mean, just excuse me. Makes me all excited. I had to sneeze.
So exciting that we're sneezing about it.
Exactly. Hey, it almost feels like the defense has been allergic to Jalen Milroe fastball here. And that's the thing, is that we have been able to see the improvement in terms of his accuracy and his anticipation as a passer. We haven't really seen him unleashed as a runner, and of course, that's one of the things that you're not truly going to see. Until the pads go on. So I'm excited about Jalen Milroe. I think that's very clear that Sam Darnold is still the top quarterback here. But at the same time, I mean, this is everything that you're hoping for out of Jalen Milroe. I mean, we had talked before, Corbin, of course, so much about the fact that this is the William Campbell Award winner. He had the academic Heisman. He has the intelligence necessary to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. He has the leadership skills as a 2-time captain at Alabama to be a top-notch quarterback in the NFL. We know he has the physical traits. So, as you said, these are incremental steps. But the fact that Mike Macdonald was darn near effusive in his praise, about his rookie quarterback, to me, for a quarterback, or for a head coach like Mike Macdonald, who has been pretty, kind of close to the vest when it comes to, patting players on the back, especially rookies, for him to be, speaking as proudly, frankly, of Jalen Milroe in his development and in his work ethic here. To say that Milroe basically has earned to feel good about his performance so far. Again, and there is a lot of reasons to be very excited about not only what the Seahawks have at quarterback right now, but what the Seahawks have at quarterback in the future as well.
Being in attendance for all 5 of the open practices that have happened the last 2 weeks, we've gotten to see early on, and I was there for rookie minicamp too. You got to see early on that there was the typical learning a new offense, the hesitancy sometimes, not processing quite as quickly. And I think that leads to some accuracy issues. And that was a documented thing for Jalen Milroe coming out of Alabama, concerns about that and mechanics. What we saw the last 2 weeks, though, especially these last couple practices, you just saw a QB that was playing. You could see the confidence in just his body language, the way that he was operating the offense, whether it was doing drill work at the beginning of practice and working with just offensive linemen and just working on his steps, his dropbacks, or in actual team situations. You saw the live arm. You saw better mechanics. It seemed like his lower body was in sync with his upper body. You didn't see a bunch of errant passes. He was incredibly accurate, especially today. And I want to start off talking about yesterday, though, real quick. Maybe the best throw that was made the entire day by a Seahawks quarterback on Tuesday was in 7-on-7. And Tyrone Broden, he did not practice today. It looks like he might have had something that was bugging him a little bit, but he had a really impressive play where the corner was draped all over him, and Jalen Milroe threw him open on a fade route because of the placement of the football. The coverage was really good, and it was just a better throw. And he opened it up for Tyrone Broden, who did a great job reacting to where the football was and let it lead him to the end zone, reeled it in for a 45-yard touchdown during 7-on-7, a beautifully thrown, dropped into the bucket deep ball. And so that was really the first throw. You're like, whoa, that was a really nice one. Then you transition to today. He had a bunch of other good throws yesterday, but today's practice is the one that's fresh in my mind. And Steven Sims Jr., we'll talk a lot about him in today's show, but it felt like the football was in his hands like every play today. Like he was so active catching the football, both on the boundary, working in the middle of the field, especially when he was working with a third-team offense with Jalen Milroe. They were doing fourth down situation work in their first team drill. Jalen Milroe fires a dart over the middle. Steven Sims Jr. is uncovered, gets the first down. So you get the big pickup on a fourth down deep in your own territory in situational work. That is always a good sign when your young quarterback is completing those passes. You get into 7-on-7, threw a touchdown to, guess who? Steven Sims Jr. on a curl route, and looked really good in those drills. And then he transitioned to the end of practice where Mike Macdonald basically said, you know what, I'm going to put the youngsters on the spot. Literally yelled, youngsters, you're on the field. The third teamers, we're going to have third team offense, third team defense. Offense, your job is to go score a touchdown. Defense, your job is to stop them. Jalen Milroe comes in and completes a long corner route to Cody White, then down the seam to Marshall Lang, an undrafted rookie tight end out of Northwestern. Beautifully thrown ball down the seam for a big gain. Then he drops a ball right in the bucket. The best throw I've seen the entire offseason. It was a perfectly thrown 25-yard pattern, and Ricky White III had the football, but he had to dive to reel it in, and as he hit the ground, he was not able to quite control it. It would have been a really good catch, but it was a phenomenal throw, dropping it right into the back corner of the end zone. Comes back literally the next play and throws a dart over the middle for a touchdown to, guess who? Steven Sims Jr., and it was an absolute missile, just a rocket over the middle. And he looked like he barely flicked his wrist. So now you're seeing the arm talent, and you're seeing a lot more confidence in this offense. And I was really impressed because I did not expect to see him take those kind of strides here this quickly. But you can tell that the tools are starting to match with some of the technique and mechanic stuff they're working with him. And it's still going to be a work in progress. But he's been as good as any player out there the last couple of days of this minicamp. I don't care who he's playing against. He has just been throwing the ball with conviction, with accuracy, short, intermediate, and deep. And it's been a really nice thing to see here early on in his development.
Yeah, and again, when the Seahawks made that selection, of course we were basically shoulder to shoulder, doing some draft work with 93.3 KGR in Seattle. And, I basically characterized the selection as a lottery ticket at that point, because if you hit on this kid, we're talking about MVP caliber kind of a player. I mean, this is one of those kind of players that is just so physically gifted, and he just needs a little bit of time. And the NFL so rarely allows young quarterbacks time. And the Seahawks have that in Sam Darnold. That's to me the biggest reason why I absolutely loved the selection when it happened. It gave the Seahawks the A, the only team that are the highest rated team on my rankings post draft. And again, I know that's going to sound like I'm being biased in that. No, that was just they absolutely hit it out of the park in this draft class, and Jalen Milroe might just be the crown jewel of that bunch. And again, one of the reasons why I'm so excited about it has actually nothing to do with Jalen Milroe himself. I mean, again, he is just physically as gifted as it gets, but also that he is working with a coaching staff that can show a track record for developing young quarterbacks. I love what I saw from Clint Kubiak a year ago with the New Orleans Saints, and just the development of the way that they used Spencer Rattler and threw him out there and got him some opportunities to show what he could do. There's a lot of coaches out there, Corbin, you know this, that wouldn't be giving a young quarterback. Mike Macdonald, again, deserves the credit. As you said, youngsters get out there. There's an awful lot of NFL head coaches out there, Corbin, that wouldn't give the youngsters that opportunity in such a premium moment. And for Jalen Milroe to have earned that opportunity and to have succeeded in that opportunity, you can understand why the Seahawks coaching staff basically left today's minicamp basically floating on air. They are excited about this squad, and the rookies are a huge part of it.
When we come back, we are going to shift gears to other offensive takeaways from this final minicamp session. Going to be looking at offensive line, maybe a little bit more receiver discussion. Plenty to break down as we come out of mandatory minicamp and head towards the break, heading towards training camp. That's coming up next year on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get into the action. And right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team in a matchup, go Pacers, or diving into player props for teams still remaining in the playoff hunt. From Tyrese Halliburton nailing clutch jumpers in the fourth quarter, which he seems like he's been doing daily, to Chet Holmgren throwing down thunderous dunks in the paint for the Thunder, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s listening in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks capping off their offseason program on Wednesday with the second of two mandatory minicamp practices. There was plenty of emphasis on fundamentals in this final session. Quite a few of what they call ATC drills, where they are focused more on fine-tuning their plays than they are running full speed. Those are normally 50, 60%. And then they save their bullets for the actual team drills where they run full speed. So we had quite a bit of pacing differences over the course of this practice. But nonetheless, still plenty of things that you can glean from this final minicamp practice and minicamp in general. And Rob, we have to start this discussion with the offensive line because, of course, that is still the biggest question mark for the Seattle Seahawks. Coming off a year where they had a lot of issues protecting former starter Geno Smith. They couldn't run the football effectively, and they're hoping that they're going to have a much improved unit there. And they've got a couple positions that are up for grabs at center and right guard. And the question was surmised today to Mike Macdonald afterwards, do you have a certain game plan for when you would like to have your starting five figured out? Because last year, and we talked about it last year in real time, why are the Seahawks not making a decision on this right guard position going into the opener? And then Macdonald acknowledged that Anthony Bradford and Christian Haynes were still competing for the job as the year unfolded. They do not want to end up in a position like that again. So Mike Macdonald said they would like to see these positions notched out sooner rather than later. but they're also not going to rush into it. And we need to see what things look like in pads, which are obviously not going to be seeing that this time of year. The fact of the matter is, though, that it looks like right now you've really got 4 guys gunning for those 2 spots. Maybe a few other contenders emerge when the pads come on. But the hope is that they can get this figured out a little quicker than they did last year.
100% agree with you on that. And I mean, that's one of the things that Macdonald said is that they expect to have things a little bit more sorted out over the first 2 weeks of training camp. At least that's the way I read the press script, the press transcript there. If that is indeed the case, then that, of course, is going to just create that much more familiarity and rapport between the starting 5. And of course, we're talking about is Oluwatimi and Jalen Sandell at the center position, and then Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford at the right guard position. I think a couple of developments here, Corbin. Since even the minicamp, or excuse me, the OTAs earlier in this process, and certainly since the draft. I think for one, the fact that we're not talking about the left guard position being up for grabs, that Gray Zabel, the first round pick, has just kind of seized that, I think is obviously exciting. I think that the fact that Oluwatimi seems to be getting the majority of the snaps, I think that he is, maybe proving some of his critics, or quieting some of his critics. I think a little bit with the athletic ability that he is demonstrating. He is not the fastest or fleetest kind of guys, but he is quick and he is instinctive at the center position. And so I do think that he can be a fit in this wide zone blocking scheme, despite all of the critics out there. And then finally, and again, Macdonald acknowledged as much during today's press conference, Anthony Bradford has shown up in terrific shape. And I think that he is just much more committed. He recognizes this is his free agent year, and that Christian Haynes is, probably going to get this job, was drafted because Anthony Bradford wasn't playing good enough football. So I think that these are all positive developments for the Seahawks. I think that this is a positional group that, every Seahawks fan knows. It's absolutely critical. This is as big as if Sam Darnold is not as successful as Geno Smith was. Well, if the offensive line doesn't make significant improvements, it doesn't matter how good the quarterback is. We saw that the last couple of seasons. But I do feel very confident that the talent is in place. I think that the coaching staff finally is in place for Seattle to take advantage of the talent that they have. I do believe this is going to be a much improved offensive line. I do believe they're going to run the football much more consistently, much more powerfully than what we've seen in the past. And that's going to be one of the biggest reasons why you're going to see the Seahawks return to the postseason.
Yeah, I think the offensive line, it's easily the position that has the most concern for fans. And so there's going to be the biggest questions. But the reality is that there's only so much that you can glean from these practices on the offensive line because they're not hitting people, and that is their job.
Yep.
So it is tough this time of year to really have a gauge on where things stand. And there could be other guys that play into this. Satao Lamea, when the pads come out, maybe he's back in the competition. Maybe Bryce Cabledew, the rookie out of Kansas, gets into the competition. Right now, they don't appear to be in it, but the pads come out, things are going to change a little bit, and it might adjust what the Seahawks are thinking those positions. Where you can make evaluations, at least to an extent, is the receiver position, because those guys get to do what they do. They get to catch passes. They get an opportunity to show off their stuff in that regard. And receivers are always going to stand out in OTAs because defenders can't aggressively play the football. They can't press cover. There's going to be things that are working to their advantage in these practices. With that being said, I do think you have to take notice of the guys that are consistently showing up. And what's been fun about watching this receiver group, Rob, has been not only are you getting guys like Cooper Kupp and Marquez Valdez-Scantling had quite a few catches today. Jackson Smith and Jigba last week had a couple days in OTAs that he was making a lot of plays. You are seeing not just those guys that are the more known commodities making plays. You've got guys from Jake Bobo to Cody White. Cody White was the star of the show yesterday. And then, as I mentioned earlier, today was Steven Sims Jr. Day. He was catching passes all over the field. He had touchdown receptions from both Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe, multiple touchdown catches from Jalen Milroe. And it just felt like he was carrying the football almost every play out there today. He was a huge part of the offensive attack, very active. And I think he is a guy that we have got to be talking about more because at the end of the day, as Mike Macdonald reemphasized in his post-practice press conference, special teams is going to be the tip of the spear for this. Like these last couple of guys on the roster, they need to be glue guys on special teams. And Steven Sims Jr., we know that Torrey Horton, when he's healthy, has a chance to be a dynamic return man. They've got a couple other guys in this roster that have experience at the college level. Steven Sims Jr. has done it at a high level in the NFL. It's only a couple years ago he returned a punt for the Ravens in the playoffs. This is a guy that has NFL experience returning kicks, returning punts for touchdowns. And the fact of the matter is that if you're going to get production from him potentially as a fifth receiver or sixth receiver with the special teams value, it very much increases his chances of making this team. There might not be a more competitive position group when you're just considering totality for roster spots than what the Seahawks have at receiver. It's a really good problem to have, but guys like Cody White, Steven Sims Jr., Tyrone Broden, I mean, they've got all kinds of guys that are trying to knock on that door saying, I can play on this football team. I can make this football team. And it is really going to boil down to the special teams emphasis that we're going to see when the pads come out.
No, I think that's very well said. I think that the wide receiver position still has to be a position of concern for the Seahawks. They are going to need to have one of these receivers in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth spots kind of step up. The special teams aspect of it is, I think, is going to certainly favor a player like Sims because of the return ability, as you mentioned. We've previously noted how what a dynamic return man that Torrey Horton was, both as a kick returner and as a punt returner at Colorado State. And then, of course, Ricky White the third with his 4-block kicks a year ago. Again, we're talking, or 4-block punts, excuse me. No, I think it was kicks. But anyways, the point is that there has been a huge priority for receivers and special teams. And I recognize all that. At the same time, my biggest concern, Corbin, continues to be the lack of downfield speed at this wide receiver position. I still think that is a significant area of concern. I think that the Seahawks have got to be careful here. I think that they are very, very confident how good their defense is, and that's why they are just kind of brushing away the idea that their starting defense hasn't allowed a touchdown. In the first two minicamp or the two minicamp practices against the first string offense. That to me is not so much a knock on Sam Darnold as it is you have a bunch of wide receivers that aren't getting open. And again, I think it's a lack of speed there. That was before we recorded today's program. I asked you, sir, if I could have a little bit of time to kind of do some tape. I wasn't watching rookies. I was watching some of the vet wide receivers. Marquez Valdes-Scantling last year, his breakout year, or at least resurrection year, whatever you want to call it. I mean, he had 10 contested passes. He caught one of them. I mean, that to me is a huge concern for a Seahawks franchise right here that obviously got rid of two dynamic players in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So to me, again, Corbin, as excited as I'm about Steven Sims or Cody White or Jake Bobo, I want to see one of these players dominate consistently, not flash one day and then somebody else take the shining spotlight the next.
To wrap up the offensive discussion, look, everybody that listens to our podcast knows that I love fullbacks. And when Clint Kubiak said the fullback's coming back, that was one of the most exciting things imaginable for me. And he wasn't just giving lip service, which we should have known that if you've watched him as an offensive coordinator. New Orleans used a fullback 30% of their plays last year. So it has been a big part of his offense. But getting to see it on the practice field and seeing just how much Robbie Oots and Brady Russell are rotating into action is really exciting. And oh, by the way, we got our first glimpse of Robbie Oots catching a touchdown pass today. He caught it from Drew Lock on a flat route, and get to hear the entire sideline, all the Seahawks players yelling Oots, and got me thinking what would be like if he caught one at Lumen Field for a touchdown. How crazy that fan base would be for this guy. But they are truly utilizing the fullback as much as we anticipated they were going to, maybe more. It is a big part of the offense. And a lot of these guys, including Charles Cross today, we're talking about how much they love adding that little wrinkle to their offense. So it's not lip service. The fullbacks are going to be a big part of Clint Kubiak's offense in 2025. When we come back, let's shift gears to the defense, as Rob just hinted at. It was another really good defensive day. Going to discuss some of the things that went down in the VMAC on that side of the ball. Leonard Williams and how he's looking to take his game to another level after being an all-pro. I'm sorry, he should have been an all-pro last year, playing an all-pro level, how he's going to get to the next level, and much more. That's coming up here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos. and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, whether it's Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. I've been using digital calendars for quite some time, and yet my wife and I still get mixed up on dates and times. Trust me, I get reminded about this all the time. Whether it's a family member flying in, an appointment, or work road trips to cover the Seahawks, we still have a tendency to forget things and mix events up, which creates chaos. But with Skylight Calendars, that's no longer an issue. We've got all of our electronic calendar dates and times available on a 15-inch screen to stay focused and be less overwhelmed. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. The NFL draft was months ago, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. The Seahawks wrapping up their offseason program, putting a bow on it at the VMAC today, the second of two mandatory minicamp practices. We've talked quarterbacks, offensive line, receivers, but at the end of the day, this was an offseason program that was dominated by the defense. You can tell that the defense, they are in their bag of tricks, whether it's Mike Macdonald, all the returning players that are coming back that were in attendance for OTAs and minicamp. And not surprisingly, defenses are usually ahead of the curve anyway, but in the case of the Seahawks, they're way ahead of the curve with this being year two in Mike Macdonald's defense. Second straight day that the first team defense did not give up any touchdowns. That is an impressive feat. I don't care if it's minicamp or OTAs. That is still a really impressive feat. And a lot of it just has to do with the suffocating coverage that we've seen from this team. There's a couple plays that jump out to me immediately, and there's one in particular. If the pads would have been on, I don't know that the player that got the football would be able to talk to us about it, because Jake Bobo was running a jet sweep, which we know has worked in the past. He scored a touchdown on a jet sweep in his rookie season against the Cleveland Browns. But Devin Witherspoon knew that this play was coming before the ball was even snapped. Like, Devin Witherspoon, that's just what he does. Incredibly instinctive guy. He knew where the football was going before Jake Bobo even went in motion. And they had to blow the play dead immediately after Jake Bobo got the handoff, because 21 was screaming off the edge from the slot cornerback spot. And I'm telling you, Rob, if the pads were on there, good luck, Jake Bobo. And he's a big guy that can be tough to bring down, but Devin Witherspoon was coming as a heat-seeking missile on that play. And that just really tells you where this defense is at right now with just how fast that they are playing in year two of Mike Macdonald's defense.
Yeah, which is obviously very exciting. Again, I think that one of the biggest reasons why Seattle's going to have some success is I do expect their offense to be improved. I expect their defense to be dominant. Certainly in the top five kind of a caliber units. Now, obviously, a huge part of that is going to be depending on health. And I think that Leonard Williams, to me, is the most important defender in that way. As you said, we both viewed him basically as an all-pro caliber player a year ago, and I think that he can build upon that. As excited as I am about the instincts of Devin Witherspoon and with year two with Ernest Jones IV at the linebacker position, I think that is going to have significant improvements. I'm excited about the development possibilities of Avoye Mafe or Derek Hall at the edge spots. I think that Leonard Williams is that guy that can absolutely take over a game. He proved as much a year ago. And again, some of the things that he was saying, and that Mike Macdonald, again, pretty effusive in his praise about Leonard Williams. And the fact that, Big Cat has basically been willing at this point in his career to come in. I mean, that was, to me, again, one of the most exciting things about this, just all the buy-in. All the players were there. Not everybody was able to practice, as we're going to be discussing in just a moment, unfortunately. But everybody was at least in attendance. And, when you consider this was a defense that was playing pretty damn well a year ago towards the end of the season, and all they basically lost was Draymond Jones, and they replaced him with DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, what a true dog. I mean, kind of a Jaron Reed, kind of just a physical presence, one of the tough guys in all of the NFL. I mean, Corbin, again, I'm really excited about where this defense is going to be. And again, I think that it all kind of centers around Leonard Williams and the fact that he is looking to incorporate a little bit more counter moves and some, a little bit of deception to go along with his long arm power. I think that there is a possibility that Leonard Williams absolutely, becomes that all-pro player that we all saw a year ago.
And that's what sets the elite players apart from everyone else. It's the guys that, I was great last year, but I can be better. And for Williams to come in and really attack that finesse part of his game, because as he said, power is always going to be his bread and butter. And I asked him that question, and you could just tell excitedly that he was like, I'm always going to get after it as a bull rusher. Power is something that does not age, like what, say, speed and other factors do. So he's going to be able to rely on that throughout his NFL career. But having a few other tricks in your bag to go off of those power moves, anytime that you can make those sharper and you can add more to your toolbox, it just makes you that much tougher to block. So there's always room to grow, and Leonard Williams certainly feels like that can help him in the pass rushing department, and it can help him as a run defender. Sometimes you can mix those finesse moves in to just completely catch a blocker off guard right off the snap on a run play and get into the backfield. It's figuring out when to use those, and that's the thing he and Adam Durde are working on, finding the right times. He has those in his back pocket so he can use them when those right times come up during the course of a game, and it's just a way to add more tricks to an already really talented magician in the middle in Leonard Williams. So I think it's exciting to see that he has come in attack mode in year 11. He has come in attack mode looking for finding ways to get that game to be even better than what we saw last year when he played at an all-pro level. As far as the last takeaway for me on defense coming out of this, I do want to talk about the injury situation, because Seattle is much healthier on offense than what it is on the defensive side of the football. You didn't see many guys that were sitting out. You didn't have anybody that was really coming off of a significant injury. On defense, Uchenna Nwosu obviously did not do anything in OTAs or minicamp. He's coming off knee surgery. And Mike Macdonald was non-committal about whether he's going to have a chance to be ready for the start of the season. Timelines are still really murky. We've got 6 weeks. So it's not like they don't have time to figure this out. You don't have to make a verdict on this. But there is a very real possibility that he opens training camp on the PUP list. And as we know from past situations, I don't care what the knee surgery was. It was knee surgery. And when you're talking about a veteran who's had other injuries that he's dealt with, until you see him on the field, you're going to maybe have some reservations about when Uchenna Nwosu is going to be back out there. When is Riley Mills going to be available? We've seen a few stepping stones this week, but he's still quite a ways away from being ready to play football again. So the defense has several players that you can at least look at and say, well, I'm wondering about where they're going to be at injury-wise when the season starts. The good news is you do have a month-and-a-half window now where you can really have those guys attack the rehab and hope that they are ready to go for the start of camp, or at least in the case of Riley Mills, maybe have a shot to be ready for the start of the regular season.
Yeah, on the topic of Riley Mills, I frankly just given how late his injury took place during the playoff run that Notre Dame made a year ago, I just am not expecting Riley Mills to be able to get back onto the field for the Seahawks this season. Maybe he will. I hope he is. I know that he fully expects that, and I know that the Seahawks were very optimistic about that at the draft. Otherwise, I don't know that they would have said as much following their selection and just would have acknowledged the fact that he was coming off of this injury. That said, I certainly do expect to see Uchenna Nwosu out there on the field for the Seahawks. And if Seattle does not have him, then that is a significant hole. Look, I again have a great deal of excitement about Boye Mafe and Derek Hall at the edge. Very, very excited about DeMarcus Lawrence being added to the squad. But at the same time, I think that is a position of concern. I think that we've talked about I think that John Schneider deserves some credit that he has kept the Seahawks in a position to take advantage of possible veterans being in difficult situations with other teams, possible free agents, because the Seahawks do have some salary cap flexibility. The longer that this Trey Hendrickson stuff goes on with the Cincinnati Bengals, and now that the Seahawks clearly do have some concerns, at least, about Uchenna Nwosu and his availability, I think that is something to kind of explore a little bit. I don't think that Trey Hendrickson necessarily is a perfect fit in this defense, but he is a versatile player. He is obviously a proven pass rusher. And so, again, that I do think that this is something that the Seahawks, while the players themselves, at least the veterans, the rookies are going to be around for another week. The veterans are not going to be participating now because, as we talked about, Mike Macdonald basically has given them the rest of the summer off until training camp in late July. But I promise you, the Seahawks front office is absolutely going to be exhausted of possibilities. I think that pass rusher, because of this news with Nwosu, and wide receiver remain significant areas of concern for this club.
As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Reg. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. When we return tomorrow, we'll be diving into what we learned coming out of the offseason program and what we still need answered heading towards training camp. Make sure that you are listening in and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Go Hawks.